Sometimes, even the kindest intentions can lead to the most painful truths. What began as a warm-hearted surprise trip to Boston with my children quickly turned into a nightmare I never expected. Just one hotel door, one moment of truth, and suddenly my 17-year marriage was hanging by a thread. They say what happens in hotel rooms stays there, but some secrets simply can't remain hidden. My name is Michael Anderson, my friends call me M. I'm 50 years old and have been married to my wife Rebecca for nearly 20 years. We have 2 wonderful kids, Curtis, who's 15 and growing faster than I can keep up with, and Sophie, our 10-year-old sweetheart who still believes her dad can do anything. That Wednesday morning started just like any other during one of Rebecca's business trips. I was rushing around trying to get the kids ready for school, Curtis glued to his phone, Sophie barely touching her cereal, and me drinking coffee like it was my only lifeline. Rebecca had already been gone for 3 days on a consulting job in Boston, with 4 more to go. 7 days total, longer than usual, and we were all starting to feel her absence. I love my wife deeply, so while she was away I had an idea. The kids and I could surprise her by flying to see her in Boston. The thought hit me while watching Sophie lazily stir her Cheerios. What if we went to see Mom this weekend? I asked, setting down my mug. Sophie's eyes lit up like it was Christmas morning. Really? We can show up and surprise her. I nodded, already feeling excited. We could book flights today and be there by tomorrow evening. Just imagine her face when she opens the hotel door. Curtis finally glanced up from his phone. That would actually be pretty cool, he said, which, coming from a teenager, was basically a celebration. By noon, I had called in a favor at work to get Friday off, arranged for the kids to miss school, and booked 3 tickets to Boston. All day, I imagined Rebecca's face. The shock, the happiness, maybe even tears. I hadn't surprised her like this in years. I tried calling her that morning, but it went straight to voicemail. Not unusual during her intense consulting meetings. I sent her a message. Miss you. The kids are asking when you're coming home. Love you. No reply. That felt odd, but I figured she was just busy. That evening, as I packed our bags, I tried calling again. Still nothing. A small knot formed in my stomach, but I brushed it off. Boston was hosting a huge business conference. She was likely networking, building connections, doing what she did best. Rebecca was a powerhouse in heels. As I tucked Sophie into bed that night, she held her favorite stuffed bunny close to her chest. Do you think Mommy will cry when she sees us? She asked, eyes full of hope. Maybe, sweetheart, I said, kissing her forehead. It's going to be the best surprise ever. At the time, I had no idea how wrong I was. No clue that the surprise waiting in Boston wasn't the one we planned, but one that would tear our family apart. The flight to Boston wasn't long, but it felt endless. Curtis had his headphones on, lost in music. Sophie chatted non-stop about all the things she wanted to tell her mom. I sat between them, quietly battling a growing sense of worry. I tried calling Rebecca 3 more times before we boarded. Still straight to voicemail. No ringing. I sent another message. Hope your meetings are going well. Miss you. A delivery notification popped up, but there was no reply. Dad, why are you checking your phone every 5 seconds? Curtis asked, pulling off one earbud. Just making sure our rental car is confirmed, I lied, forcing a smile. But inside something didn't feel right. Rebecca and I had been married for nearly 2 decades. We'd had our share of ups and downs, but she never ignored messages like this. She always made time for the kids, even during her busiest days. When we landed at Logan Airport, I tried one more time. This time it rang, but still no answer. I left a voicemail, trying to sound cheerful. Hey babe, just checking in. Call me when you get a chance. Getting the rental car was a mess. Wrong reservation, long lines, Sophie needing the bathroom twice. By the time we hit the road into downtown Boston, it was after 8 p.m. The evening traffic had eased, but the city was buzzing with life. Dad, I'm hungry, Sophie said from the back seat. Me too, Curtis added, finally interested in something besides his phone. Can we eat before we see Mom? Let's get to the hotel first, I said, gripping the steering wheel. Maybe Mom can join us for a late dinner. As we neared the Marriott where Rebecca was staying, the knot in my stomach tightened again. I tried calling one last time. This time it actually rang, but still no answer. The hotel's revolving doors opened with a rush of warm air. The lobby was elegant. Marble floors, soft lighting. Curtis and Sophie looked around, impressed by the fancy surroundings. Rebecca always stayed in nice hotels when her company paid for it. "Why don't you guys wait here?" I told them, pointing to a row of plush couches. "I'll check us in and find out which room Mom's in." Sophie bounced excitedly. "Can we surprise her right away?" I nodded, faking excitement. "That's the plan, sweetheart." I walked to the front desk, unaware that I was heading toward a moment that would change my life forever. "Good evening, sir. How can I help you?" the receptionist asked politely, a young woman with a professional smile. Cleared my throat. "I'd like to check in, and I also need to get in touch with my wife, Rebecca Anderson. She's staying here." He typed quickly. "Let me check. Yes, Mrs. Anderson is staying with us. Would you like me to call her room?" "Yes, please," I said, relieved to know she was here. She dialed and waited, then frowned slightly. "I'm sorry, sir. There's no answer. Could you try again?" I asked, the tight feeling in my stomach growing stronger. Maybe she didn't hear it. She tried once more, but still no response. "I'm sorry, still no answer. Would you like to leave a message?" "No, that's okay," I said, handing over my credit card. "We'll just check in for now. My wife is sort of expecting us. It's a surprise visit." I noticed a brief hesitation on her face, but she nodded. "I see. Let me get you set up." She processed the reservation, then handed me 2 key cards. "You're in room 732. Mrs. Anderson is in 718. Different floors?" I asked, feeling puzzled. "Not the same floor. Just down the hall from each other," she replied, then hesitated before adding, "It looks like Mrs. Anderson checked in with a +1. Time seemed to freeze for a moment. "+1. Echoed. "What do you mean?" The receptionist's expression shifted uncomfortably. "The reservation shows 2 guests in the room." I assumed. "Sorry. I shouldn't have said anything." I forced a laugh, though it sounded empty, even to me. "No, it's fine. Probably just a colleague sharing the room to cut costs." But deep down I knew better. Rebecca's company always paid for separate rooms for their consultants. It was a matter of policy and pride. I gathered our bags and returned to Curtis and Sophie, my thoughts spinning. A work friend. A female co-worker. I couldn't even let myself finish the thought. "Did you find Mom?" Sophie asked, bouncing with excitement. "Not yet, sweetheart," I said, managing a smile. "Let's go up to our room first and freshen up." The elevator ride was quiet, except for Sophie softly humming. Curtis gave me a look. He sensed something was wrong, but thankfully he didn't say anything. The room was nice. Clean, classy, typical for a high-end hotel. I placed the bags down and took a deep breath. "Can we go see Mom now?" Sophie asked eagerly. "In a minute," I said. "Why don't you wash up? It's been a long day." While the kids were busy, I quietly stepped out into the hallway and walked to room 718. My heart pounded in my chest as I raised my hand to knock. No answer. I knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. But I could hear something. A soft melody, faint laughter. My blood turned cold. I pulled out my phone and typed. "I'm outside your hotel room door. Open up." The sounds inside suddenly stopped. Then I heard a muffled male voice. I closed my eyes, dread creeping in. Deep down, I already knew what I was about to see. The door to room 718 opened slowly. Rebecca stood there in a hotel bathrobe, her hair messy, cheeks flushed. Her expression shifted quickly, from surprise to fear, and finally to something that looked strangely like irritation. "Jason, what are you doing here?" she whispered sharply, stepping into the hallway and pulling the door nearly shut behind her. I stared at her, stunned into silence. After a moment I finally managed to speak. Surprise, I said quietly. The kids and I thought we'd come see you. Her eyes widened in shock. The kids are here. At the hotel. In our room. Just down the hall. My voice sounded distant. They've been excited all day to see you. Rebecca ran a hand through her hair, glancing nervously at her door. Mike, you should have called first. This isn't. I did. Many times. I crossed my arms. Who's in your room, Becca? She flinched at the question. It's not what you think. Really? I said, my voice growing cold. Because I think there's another man in there. Am I wrong? Just then the door opened wider, and a man stepped out. He was tall in shape, maybe in his early 40s. He was buttoning his shirt. Becca, is everything okay out here? He asked casually. My vision narrowed as I focused on this stranger, this man who just called my wife by her nickname. My nickname for her. Who the hell are you? I asked, my voice low and tight. Mike, please, Rebecca said, trying to step in. No, I cut her off, not looking away from him. I want to hear it from him. I stepped forward. Who are you? And why are you in my wife's hotel room? The man looked confused, his eyes darting between me and Rebecca. I'm Trevor from the Chicago office, the man said, automatically reaching out to shake my hand, then awkwardly pulling it back. I didn't know Becca was married. His words hit me like a punch to the chest. I turned to Rebecca. She at least had the decency to look ashamed. But not enough. You told him you were single. I asked, my voice low, barely above a whisper. Rebecca closed her eyes for a moment. Can we please not do this in the hallway? She said quietly. Trevor, maybe you should go. Yeah, Trevor, I repeated bitterly, my anger finding its mark. Maybe you should. Trevor raised his hands in a defensive gesture. Look, man, I had no idea. She never said anything about a husband. Or kids. He grabbed his jacket from inside the room. I'm out of here. He walked away quickly, leaving the two of us in a silence so heavy it was suffocating. 17 years, Becca, I finally said. 17 years. And now you're picking up men on work trips. It's not like that, she snapped, shame quickly turning into defense. You don't understand. Then explain it to me, I challenged. Explain why our children flew across the country to surprise their mom, only to find her with another man. She looked away. You should have called first. Those words. The nerve of them. They broke something in me. Are you serious right now? Said stunned. This is somehow my fault. Because I didn't give you a heads up before catching you cheating. Lower your voice, she whispered sharply, glancing down the hall. The kids are waiting, I said, stepping back. Sophie has been looking forward to this all day. What do you plan on telling her? For the first time, guilt appeared on her face. Give me 5 minutes to get dressed. I'll come to your room. I turned to walk away, then paused. How long has this been going on, Rebecca? She couldn't meet my eyes. It was just a one-time thing. A mistake. But Trevor's voice echoed in my head. I didn't know Becca was married. Well, it wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. And as I walked back toward our room, my heart heavy and mind racing, I knew everything had changed. The walk back felt endless, like crossing a desert. Every step weighed down with betrayal and disbelief. How was I supposed to face my kids now? What could I possibly tell them? I stopped outside our door, took a deep breath, and forced my face into something resembling normal. The key card beeped and I opened the door. Dad, did you find Mom? Sophie jumped up from the bed, full of energy. Curtis looked up from his phone. He studied my face for a moment, his eyes narrowing. What's wrong? He asked, always too perceptive. Mom's coming in a few minutes, I managed. She was surprised to see us. Sophie clapped her hands. Is she happy? Did she cry? She was definitely surprised, I said, careful not to meet Curtis's gaze. Hey, why don't we order some room service? You guys must be starving. Already on it, Curtis said, still watching me closely. Burgers and fries and chocolate cake, Sophie added, bouncing on the bed. I nodded, trying to smile. Perfect. Just then a knock came at the door. Mom's here, Sophie shouted, running to open it before I could stop her. She threw the door open and launched herself at Rebecca, who stood in the hallway looking perfectly put together. Hair brushed, makeup done, dressed professionally. If I hadn't just seen her 10 minutes ago in a bathrobe with another man behind her, I would have never known. Mommy, Sophie squealed, hugging her tightly. Ah, sweetheart, Rebecca said, hugging her back. What a surprise to see you all. Her eyes met mine over Sophie's head. There was a silent plea in her look. Please go along with it, for the kids. Curtis stayed seated on the bed. Hey, Mom, he said, his tone guarded and flat. Rebecca walked over and kissed the top of his head. Hey, buddy. I think you've grown since I left. It's been a week, Mom, he replied dryly. The room fell into an awkward silence, broken only by Sophie excitedly retelling every detail of our trip. Rebecca smiled and nodded, throwing occasional glances at me. I couldn't bring myself to meet her eyes. Dad said we could all have dinner together, Sophie finished. Room service is coming, with burgers. Rebecca's smile faltered just a bit. That sounds wonderful. But I actually have a work dinner tonight, Rebecca said. Important clients. I let out a short, bitter laugh, quickly turning it into a cough. Sophie's smile faded. But we came all this way to see you, she said softly, disappointed. I know, honey. And I'm so happy you did, Rebecca replied, her tone sweet. I promise tomorrow I'm all yours. We'll go sightseeing. Do whatever you want. Then she turned to me. Mike, can I talk to you in the hallway for a minute? Curtis rolled his eyes. Real subtle, Mom, he muttered. I followed her out of the room, leaving the door slightly ajar in case Sophie needed me. Work dinner, I said as soon as we were alone. Is that what you're calling it now? Rebecca's calm expression cracked a little. Mike, please. I just need some time to figure this out. Figure what out? Yes. How to lie to your family. Because you're doing a great job at it already. She winced like I'd slapped her. That's not fair. Not fair, I said, keeping my voice low so the kids wouldn't hear. You want to talk about fair? Our daughter made me stop at 3 different stores just to find her favorite travel pillow, because she wanted to bring it to you. Curtis actually looked up from his phone long enough to help book the flights. Do you even know how excited they were to see you? Her eyes filled with tears. Mike, I made a terrible mistake. I know I did. But please don't tell the kids. Not yet. So I'm supposed to pretend everything is fine? I asked bitterly. Put on a happy face while you head back to your client dinner. It really is a client dinner, she insisted quickly. Trevor won't be there. This account is important. It's worth millions to the firm. I stared at her, realizing how distant she now seemed, like a stranger. Your career. That's what you're thinking about right now? No, of course not, she said, rubbing her temples. I'm just trying to salvage whatever I can from this disaster. Please, Mike. Just one night. Let me get through this dinner, and tomorrow we'll figure things out. There's nothing to figure out, I said flatly. You cheated on me. You lied to our kids. You've been living a double life. And I don't even know for how long. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. It wasn't a double life, she whispered. It was just one mistake. But Trevor's voice rang in my head. I didn't know Becca was married. I looked her in the eyes. Save it. I'll take care of the kids, I said, turning back toward our room. Go to your dinner. What are you going to tell them? Rebecca asked nervously. I haven't decided yet, I replied. My hand rested on the door handle. But unlike you, I don't lie to my children. Inside, Sophie was bouncing on the bed, full of energy. Is Mom coming to dinner with us? She asked, beaming. I swallowed hard. Not tonight, sweetheart. Mom has an important work thing she can't miss. Her smile faded, and the disappointment in her eyes crushed me. But we came all this way to surprise her. I know, honey, I said, sitting beside her and wrapping my arm around her small shoulders. And she was surprised. She just has to finish some work first. But guess what? She's all ours tomorrow, the whole day. Curtis was watching me closely, his expression unreadable. Where's she going tonight? He asked. Client dinner, I said, the lie burning in my mouth like acid. Aha! He turned back to his phone. Whatever. Sophie, always the optimist, bounced back quickly. Can we go see Boston Harbor tonight? My friend Emma said there are cool lights and boats. The thought of playing tourist while my marriage fell apart felt unbearable, but then I looked at Sophie's hopeful face, and I gave in. Sure, why not? Let's finish dinner, then check it out. Sweet, she grinned, grabbing another French fry. This is still the best surprise ever, Dad. Curtis caught my eye again and raised an eyebrow, his silent way of asking what was really going on. I gave a small shake of my head, a quiet promise to explain later. He nodded slightly. At 15, he was already more man than boy, and I was suddenly thankful for his maturity. That night, as we walked along the harbor, Sophie skipped ahead, pointing out boats and lights with pure excitement. Curtis fell into step beside me. Mom's cheating, isn't she? He asked quietly. I nearly tripped, caught off guard by his bluntness. Curtis! Just tell me the truth, Dad. I'm not a kid anymore. I looked at him, tall, serious, suddenly so grown up. Yes, I finally said. I think she is. The words hung between us, heavy and painful. What made you think that? I asked, as we watched Sophie dart toward a massive yacht nearby. He shrugged, hands deep in his pockets. The way you're acting. The way she looked at you. And when you left to find her earlier, you came back looking like someone died. He was sharp. Too sharp. I don't want to lie to you, I said quietly. But this is complicated, Curtis. It's adult stuff. I'm not a child, Dad, he said firmly. I'd rather know the truth than sit around wondering what's happening to our family. I took a deep breath, letting the cold harbor air fill my lungs. Yes, I said. I found your mother with another man. Curtis's jaw tightened, but he didn't seem surprised. I figured. She's been different ever since she started this consulting thing. Always on her phone. Working late. More business trips. A wave of guilt hit me. You noticed that? Yes. Yeah. And I think you did too, he said softly. You just didn't want to believe it. There was no blame in his voice. Just quiet understanding far beyond his age. Dad. Curtis. Come look at this boat. Sophie called out, waving to us. It has a helicopter on top. Be right there, sweetie. I called back, forcing a cheerful tone into my voice. Curtis kicked at a loose stone on the walkway. What happens now? Are you and Mom getting divorced? The word hit like a blow to the chest. I don't know yet, I said honestly. This just happened. But no matter what, it won't change how much your mom and I love you and Sophie. He scoffed. If she loved us, she wouldn't have done this. It's not that simple, I said, though part of me agreed with him. Sometimes adults make awful mistakes. This isn't forgetting to pay the electric bill, Curtis said, his voice hard. She chose to cheat. We caught up to Sophie, who was pressed up against the harbor railing, her eyes wide. Look, that yacht is bigger than our whole house. I lifted her onto my shoulder so she could see better, thankful for her bright, innocent spirit. Pretty impressive, huh? As Sophie excitedly talked about the boat, Curtis stood off to the side. He looked older than ever, processing everything, choosing how he would carry it. Then he leaned in, his voice low. Don't tell Sophie, he said. She still thinks Mom hangs the moon. I won't, I promised. Not yet anyway. But we'll have to figure this out eventually. Curtis nodded. Then, to my surprise, he leaned slightly against my side, the closest thing to a hug I'd gotten from him in years. We'll be okay, Dad. You, me, and Sophie. In that moment, my 15-year-old son was trying to comfort me, and it nearly broke me. But it also gave me strength. Somehow we would be okay. Yeah, I said, putting my arm around his shoulders. We will. Back at the hotel, Sophie was half asleep on my shoulder, the excitement of the day finally catching up with her. Curtis walked beside us, quiet and withdrawn, the weight of what he'd learned hanging over us like a storm cloud. I'm tired, Daddy, Sophie mumbled as we stepped into the elevator. I know, sweetheart, I said softly. We'll get you into bed soon. I pressed the button for our floor, bracing myself for whatever might come next. As the elevator doors opened, my heart sank. Rebecca stood outside our room, arms crossed, foot tapping impatiently. But when she saw us, her expression shifted to concern. Where have you been? I've been calling for hours, she exclaimed. We went to the harbor, I said evenly, adjusting Sophie on my shoulder. I left my phone in the room. Curtis brushed past her without saying a word, swiped the keycard and entered. Curtis, what's wrong, honey? She asked, frowning. He ignored her. The door closed behind him. What did you tell him? She hissed at me. The truth, I said quietly. He asked. I wasn't going to lie to him. Rebecca's face paled. You had no right to do that without talking to me first. Lower your voice, I warned, nodding toward Sophie, who was barely awake. And yes, I did. You gave up your right when you cheated on our family. Rebecca stepped back as if I had slapped her. Please, she said, her voice cracking. Can we talk about this rationally? How was your client dinner? I asked, my tone sharp. Productive, she answered tightly. We landed the account. Congratulations, I said bitterly. Your career's doing great. That's not fair. No, Becca. Fair is our son knowing his mother is a cheater. Fair is our daughter soon realizing the same. Nothing about this is fair. Sophie stirred on my shoulder. Daddy, why are you and Mommy fighting? Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. We're not fighting, sweetie, just having a grown-up talk. It sounded like fighting, Sophie murmured. I rubbed her back gently. It's okay, princess. Let's get you to bed. I moved past Rebecca into the room. She grabbed my arm. Mike, we need to talk. Privately. Not tonight, I said firmly. I need to put our daughter to bed. Inside, Curtis sat on his bed with headphones on, staring blankly at the wall. He didn't even acknowledge his mother. I helped Sophie change into her pajamas, then tucked her in. Her eyes were already drooping. Good night, baby girl. Sweet dreams. Night, Daddy, night, Mommy, she mumbled. Rebecca stood at the foot of her bed, awkward and unsure. Good night, sweetheart, she whispered, kissing Sophie's forehead. Once Sophie was asleep, Rebecca gestured toward the hallway. Can we talk in my room? Please. I looked at Curtis. You okay? He pulled off one headphone. I'm fine. Go talk. Sort this mess out. His voice was flat, distant. Rebecca flinched but said nothing. I followed her silently down the hall, to that room. The one where, just hours ago, I saw her with another man. She unlocked the door and we stepped inside. The place had been cleaned, but the betrayal lingered in the air like a foul smell. Curtis hates me, she said, breaking the silence. He's hurt, I corrected. We all are. She sat on the edge of the bed, her composure beginning to crack. I made a terrible mistake, Mike. I don't know what I was thinking. That's the problem, I said, still standing by the door. You weren't thinking about us. The room felt unfamiliar, tainted. I couldn't bring myself to sit. I don't even know where to start, she said, pacing nervously. Try the truth, I said, my voice calmer than I felt. How long has this been going on? She hesitated, and that pause told me everything. It was just this once, she said. A moment of weakness. Trevor didn't seem to think so, I replied. He said he didn't know you were married. How would he not know that, if this was the first time? Rebecca's shoulders slumped. We've been talking, flirting, for a few months. It started at a conference in Chicago. So this wasn't your first business trip rendezvous? She closed her eyes. No. Even though I expected it, the confirmation felt like a blade to the chest. I leaned against the wall for support. How many times? How many men? Just Trevor 3 times. She wiped away a tear. I know that doesn't make it better. No, it doesn't, I said, shaking my head. 17 years, Becca. 3 kids. And you threw it all away. For what? Some thrill? A little attention. It wasn't like that, she whispered. We were drifting apart. You were always working, always focused on the kids. When was the last time you looked at me? Really looked at me? As a woman, not just a wife and mom. Anger flared in my chest. Don't you dare blame this on me. If you felt neglected, you should have talked to me. We could have worked through it together. But you chose to lie. You chose to cheat. I know, she whispered. I know now. And I'm so sorry, Mike. More sorry than you can imagine. Sorry you did it. Or sorry you got caught. She flinched. That's not fair. No. None of this is fair. Curtis already hates you. Sophie will figure it out soon. You've blown up our family for a fling. Silence settled between us. Heavy. Full of 20 years of love now sitting at the edge of collapse. What happens now? She finally asked. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I once loved. The mother of my children. Now a stranger. I'm taking the kids home tomorrow, I said quietly. First flight out. Mike, please, she pleaded. We can fix this. Couples therapy. Fresh start. Whatever it takes. I don't know if I can ever trust you again, I admitted. And without trust, what do we really have? Her face crumpled. 20 years of love. Family. A history. A history you didn't value enough to protect, I said quietly. I turned toward the door. I need to get back to our kids. What are you going to tell Sophie? She asked softly. I paused, my hand resting on the doorknob. I don't know yet, I said. But unlike you, I won't lie to her. The flight home was quiet. Sophie fell asleep quickly, worn out by the emotional chaos of our shortened trip. Curtis sat next to the window, headphones on, eyes fixed outside. Every so often he glanced at me with concern and maybe something else. Respect, perhaps. I hadn't slept at all. After my final conversation with Rebecca, I returned to the room to find Curtis still awake. We're leaving tomorrow, I told him. First flight out. He nodded, relief clear on his face. Good. Rebecca had shown up at the airport to see us off. Her eyes were red from crying. Sophie had hugged her tightly, confused by her sudden absence. But why can't Mommy come with us? She asked over and over. She has to finish her work here, I said, the lie bitter in my mouth. She'll be home in a few days. Curtis gave his mother a stiff, one-armed hug. Then he walked toward the gate without looking back. As the plane began its descent into our hometown, I stared out the window, thinking about what lay ahead. How to divide our lives, how to explain things to Sophie, what to say to friends and family. Curtis's voice pulled me out of my thoughts. Yeah, buddy, said. Are you okay? He asked. His voice was calm, steady, mature in a way that made my chest tighten. I will be, I said. We all will be. He nodded, seeming satisfied with my answer. What happens when we get home? He asked. Is she coming back? I sighed. She'll come back to the house, yes. But things are going to change, Curtis. Your mom and I need to figure out what's best for everyone. You mean divorce? He asked bluntly. Maybe. I don't know yet, I said, running a hand through my hair. But whatever happens between your mom and me, one thing will never change. How much we both love you and Sophie. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, For what it's worth, Dad, I think you're doing the right thing. We deserve better. His words, far too grown up for his age, broke my heart, but also gave me strength. He shouldn't have to deal with any of this. But he was holding up. When the plane landed, Sophie woke up and immediately asked for her mom. That simple question hit hard. It reminded me all over again. Our family would never be the same. 3 weeks later, Rebecca and I sat across from each other in the kitchen. Divorce papers were spread out on the table between us. She had moved into a small apartment downtown. Curtis barely spoke to her. Sophie was beginning to understand in her own 10-year-old way that Mommy and Daddy wouldn't be living together anymore. I never wanted this, Rebecca said quietly, holding the pen just above the signature line. Neither did I said honestly. But here we are. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? She asked. Her eyes, once familiar, now looked like they belonged to a stranger. I took a moment before answering. Maybe. One day. For the kids' sake, I said. But some things can't be undone, Becca. She nodded, understanding. Then she signed her name. As I watched her leave, I felt something unexpected. Relief. The pain wasn't gone. Might never be. But for the first time since that awful day in Boston, I could see the future again. A future for me and my children. We'd be okay. Not the same, but okay.